Hey people. I never thought I'd be writing something like this. Honestly, I used to read these kinds of posts with a mix of disbelief and low-key judgment, like, how did you not see the signs? But now I get it. When you're in it, when you love someone, your brain just filters things. You justify. You ignore. You trust. Let me set the stage. I've been married to my wife, Erin, for 8 years. We met in business school, both hungry, ambitious, type A to the bone. She was brilliant, intimidating, always the loudest voice in the room. I admired that about her. Hell, I still do, in a way. She carved her own path and never apologized for it. She became a high-powered marketing exec, the kind of woman who walks into a room and instantly becomes the alpha. At home, though? It was different. At least at first. We had laughs. Private jokes. A rhythm that felt like we were on the same team. About a year ago, I took a promotion at my company that came with more hours and, ironically, my own assistant Ethan. Bright guy, fresh out of college, a bit too eager sometimes, but competent. Friendly. Thought nothing of it when Erin met him briefly at a work event and they seemed to hit it off chatting over wine. The first signs that something was off weren't what you'd expect. It wasn't distance or coldness. Erin wasn't pulling away. She was angrier. Short-tempered. Snapping over nothing. Constantly berating me for small things, leaving a coffee mug out, forgetting to book a vet appointment for our dog. It was like living with a manager who hated me. At first, I chalked it up to stress. She just landed a huge new client and was pulling long hours. But then she started asking weirdly specific questions about Ethan. How's Ethan working out? Did you promote him already? You sure you can trust a kid like that with real responsibilities? At the time, I thought she was being overprotective of me. Looking out for her husband. Now I see it for what it really was, guilt. Projection. Something darker hiding under the surface. And that's where this whole mess started. I didn't know I was sleeping next to a ticking time bomb. So after Erin's sudden obsession with Ethan, things at home kept spiraling. She became impossible to talk to. Everything I said triggered her. I'd try to suggest a date night or something small to reconnect, and she'd fire back with, if you want romance, maybe try actually acting like a man for once. That one hit me harder than I care to admit. Our physical relationship? Non-existent. It went from twice a week to once a month, to just awkward side hugs in the hallway. I asked if something was wrong, and she claimed I was being needy. Said her workload was crushing her and I should try carrying a real burden before I complained. Meanwhile, Ethan was being weird. Still polite, still efficient, but sometimes I'd catch him glancing at his phone and blushing, or getting distracted mid-conversation. At one point, he showed up late to the office with no real excuse, which was totally out of character for him. Then came the moment I really should have seen as a red flag. One night, Erin left her phone on the kitchen counter while she was showering. It buzzed. I didn't mean to snoop, but the preview caught my eye. Ethan, still thinking about last night. You looked incredible. I froze. My stomach dropped like I'd just missed a step in the dark. I picked up the phone. The message disappeared, auto-delete. She had his texts on auto-delete. I stared at that blank screen for a long time. Every part of me screamed not to jump to conclusions. Maybe it wasn't that Ethan. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe I was wrong. But I wasn't. And that message was just the beginning. After seeing that text from Ethan, I couldn't sleep. My mind ran wild with every interaction they'd had, every look, every laugh, every time Erin got a little too defensive when I even mentioned him. Still, I didn't want to believe it. I told myself maybe I misunderstood. Maybe I was being paranoid. So I decided to do what any desperate, slightly broken man might do in that situation. I checked our shared iCloud account. Now, Erin is usually meticulous with her tech. Passwords, privacy, the works. But a couple of years ago, We'd synced our photos to make it easier to share pictures of our niece's birthday. She never turned it off. And that's where I found it. A picture of her and Ethan. In my office. She was sitting on my desk, wearing the red blouse I had bought her for our anniversary. He was standing between her legs. Her hand was in his hair. His hands were, well, not where they should have been. It wasn't explicit, but it didn't need to be. The timestamp? 3:42 p.m. A day I was out closing a deal across town. A day she claimed she was working late. I stared at that photo for what felt like hours. Rage, humiliation, disgust, confusion, they all mixed into this ugly weight in my chest. This wasn't just infidelity. This was deliberate. This was calculated. This was happening under my nose, in my space, with someone I paid to help me. I had my smoking gun. But instead of confronting her right away, I needed a plan. I wasn't going to storm in and yell. I wanted her to tell me. I wanted to hear what kind of twisted lie she'd spin. And I wanted to see if she'd actually have the audacity to deny it. So I waited. And I recorded everything. I waited 3 days before I said a word. 3 days of pretending everything was normal. 3 days of fake smiles, casual dinners, and watching her scroll through her phone like nothing had happened. Every second was excruciating. I felt like I was living with a stranger. No worse, I was living with a well-dressed liar who still kissed me goodbye in the mornings like she wasn't screwing my assistant behind my back. On the third night, I poured 2 glasses of wine like I usually did. Set them on the kitchen island. She walked in, fresh from the shower, robe tied, hair wet. She barely looked at me when she sat down and reached for her glass. That's when I slid my phone across the counter. Open. The photo was up. She froze mid-sip. I didn't say a word. I just watched her face. Her eyes darted from the screen to me. Then back. Then again. She set the glass down. And you know what the first words out of her mouth were? Why were you going through my stuff? Not I'm sorry. Not it's not what it looks like. Not even a weak excuse. Just straight deflection. I didn't raise my voice. I simply asked, "How long, Aaron?" She scoffed. Scoffed. Like I was being unreasonable. It was just a few times. And honestly? If you hadn't been so wrapped up in your business, maybe I wouldn't have needed to look elsewhere. I felt like I'd been punched. Gaslighting, blame shifting, classic Aaron. She always had to be in control, even now, when she was caught red-handed. She stood up, pacing. It didn't mean anything. Ethan's just, he listens. And he doesn't treat me like I'm some background character in his life. I asked her point blank, "Do you love him?" She hesitated for a second. No. But I loved how he made me feel. That stung more than a yes would have. Then came the waterworks. "I'm sorry, but I didn't mean for it to go this far, but I was lonely, that you're always busy." On and on. But I just sat there. Because I wasn't ready to scream. I was too tired. Too drained. Too disappointed. After Erin's sob story, she went to sleep in the guest room. I stayed in the kitchen for hours, just sitting there, staring at nothing, feeling like someone had hollowed me out. I didn't cry. I wanted to. But I couldn't. It's weird, when you're hit with betrayal like that, the pain doesn't feel sharp. It's dull. Heavy. Like grief. That night, I barely slept. My mind was stuck on a loop of memories, our wedding, our son's first steps, the times I worked late just so I could afford to take her to Paris for our anniversary. Every sacrifice. Every moment I chose us. And she chose Ethan. The next few days were a blur. I couldn't concentrate at work. Every time I walked into the office and saw his empty desk, it was like a punch to the gut. I fired him the day after I found out, by the way. I didn't even tell Erin. Just called HR and had them handle it. His access was revoked within the hour. I didn't tell anyone what happened. Not my parents, not my friends. I was embarrassed. Ashamed. I was that guy, the husband who didn't see it coming, who got blindsided by his own assistant and wife like he was the punchline in some cruel joke. And then came the anger. Not just at her. At myself. For missing the signs. For trusting too much. For giving her everything she asked for, only to be betrayed like this. But somewhere in the middle of all that emotion, something surprising happened. I realized I still loved her. I hated that I did, but it was the truth. I didn't rush into anything. As much as my gut wanted me to pack a bag and walk out, I knew this was bigger than pride. We had a life together. A kid. A home. Years of history. So I did something that surprised even me. I suggested marriage counseling. Erin was shocked. At first, she thought I was setting her up for some kind of gotcha moment. But when she realized I was serious, she broke down again. She said she'd do whatever it took to fix what she broke. We started therapy the following week. It wasn't easy. There were sessions where I could barely look at her. Where everything she said felt like poison in my ears. Where I wanted to scream, "You picked him. My assistant. The guy who got my coffee." But over time, I started seeing the cracks, not just in her, but in us. We'd drifted. We stopped being partners and became co-workers in our own marriage. I enabled her bossy, aggressive personality because I thought I was supporting her independence, but maybe I was just slowly disappearing from the relationship. None of that excused what she did. Let me be clear, cheating is a choice. A selfish, gutless choice. But I started to understand why it happened, not to excuse her, but to figure out if there was anything left to salvage. Turns out there was. We kept going to therapy. We had long, uncomfortable talks. She showed remorse, real remorse, and not just crocodile tears. She cut ties with Ethan completely. She even wrote me a handwritten letter one night while I was asleep, apologizing for every single way she hurt me. It wasn't a perfect fix. It still isn't. But it was enough for me to say, let's try again. Trying again wasn't as romantic or inspiring as people make it sound. It was messy. Uncomfortable. Awkward. At times, downright painful. The first major hurdle was trust. Or rather, the complete lack of it. I started noticing every little thing Erin did, when she picked up her phone and smiled, when she worked late, when she got quiet for no reason. My mind jumped to the worst conclusions without warning. It was exhausting. She noticed, of course. And instead of getting defensive like she used to, she leaned into it. Gave me her phone willingly. Shared her calendar. Told me where she was going without me having to ask. It wasn't about control, it was about transparency. She knew she had to earn her way back. We also set rules. No late-night texting with male coworkers. No secrecy, no girl trips without clarity. I even hired a new assistant, someone I vetted myself this time, and yes, this one is a no-nonsense, 60-year-old powerhouse of a woman who's more likely to kill me than flirt with me. And as we worked through things, something strange happened. I saw Erin try. Like, genuinely try. She cooked more, even though she's terrible at it, sat with me through dumb action movies she used to roll her eyes at, and actually listened when I talked. I could see the woman I fell in love with was still in there, buried under layers of stress, ego, and bad choices. And honestly, I was still in love with her. That part never left me, no matter how much I wanted to deny it. But I still had doubts. Could we really come back from this? So, yeah, we decided to go to couples therapy. And let me tell you, if you've never sat in a room while your wife admits to sleeping with your assistant and then tries to unpack why, while a third person nods and takes notes like this is just another Tuesday, you haven't lived. I went in expecting to hear the same excuses. I was lonely, you weren't emotionally present, it just happened. Instead, Erin dropped a bomb I didn't see coming. She said, I think I've always seen you as competition. Not a partner. That hit like a truck. She went on to explain that somewhere along the line, our marriage became a scoreboard. Who earned more, who had more respect at work, who had the better ideas. And when she saw me mentoring someone, building him up, she got jealous. Twisted, right? But also, it made a weird kind of sense. I realized we had both been so wrapped up in our own egos, we stopped being teammates. We were running a marriage like a business merger, not a relationship. The therapist, God bless her patient soul, helped us start peeling back the resentment layer by layer. We worked on communication, managing our egos, and finding time for each other that didn't revolve around work or parenting or finances. It wasn't fun. There were moments I walked out of those sessions feeling worse than when I walked in. But at least we were facing it, together. And, surprisingly, I started to feel like maybe we had a shot. So we kept going to therapy. Week after week, unpacking the wreckage. Some days, Erin was defensive. Other days, I was bitter and distant. But gradually, something strange started to happen. We began laughing again. Just small moments, but real. It started with dumb things. I made a sarcastic comment about how our therapist should get a raise just for putting up with us. Erin actually snorted. We hadn't shared that kind of moment in months. Don't get me wrong, I was still hurt. I still had images burned into my brain that made me nauseous. But I also saw her really trying. She blocked my former assistant on everything. She offered to change jobs, even though I didn't ask. She gave me full access to her phone and emails. Transparency. No hesitation. I know a lot of people would say, "Man, you're crazy for staying." And I get that. Believe me, I do. But I thought about our son. I thought about how easy it is to burn everything down when it gets hard, and how rare it is to rebuild something even stronger than before. I didn't forgive her overnight. I'm not even sure I've fully forgiven her yet. But I could see the difference in her. She owned what she did. No more excuses. No more gaslighting. And maybe, just maybe, there was still something worth saving here. It's been 6 months since D-Day. I won't sugarcoat it, some days still suck. Trust isn't rebuilt with flowers and therapy appointments. It takes time. It takes consistency. Erin knows now that I pay attention. That I remember. That I don't just get over betrayal like flipping a switch. But we're still here. We cook dinner together again. We plan weekends with our son. Sometimes, I catch her watching me with this look, like she's still surprised I stayed. And maybe she should be. I surprised myself. What did I learn from this? That cheating doesn't always come with red lingerie and hotel keys. Sometimes, it's quiet and subtle, wrapped in proximity and ego. I learned that anger feels powerful, but healing is harder and braver. Do I regret staying? No. Not yet, at least. I made the choice with my eyes wide open. I'm not holding on to some fantasy version of Erin. I see her for who she is now, flawed, remorseful, human. And she sees me. Not just as the husband she betrayed, but the man who chose to believe that people can change if they want to badly enough. So here's my advice to anyone reading this. Don't ignore your gut. Don't tolerate lies. But also, don't be afraid to give someone a second chance if they earn it.